On the language learning website Babbel, they recently discovered that 70 to 90% of all people who ever try to become fluent in a second language totally fail. That's undeniable proof of what most of us already know, that the basic methods of language learning don't work. And yet, at the same time, we've all seen those famous polyglots online who speak multiple languages fluently and learn them really quickly. So how exactly are they doing this when 90% of language learners are failing to reach their goals in any given language? Well, they don't have access to different information than we do. The trick is they process the learning of that information in a different way. Part 1 of Polyglot Secrets, they network their learning. What does network your learning mean? It means that for every grammar rule and every word that you learn in a new language, you are not learning that in isolation. Instead, you are trying to connect it and cross-reference it to as many situations and as many use cases as you can. There's a common test for creative ability where you are asked to come up with as many ways that you could use a brick as possible. And after 60 seconds, depending on how many use cases you came up for a brick, that determines your level of creativity. Well, what you want to do with language learning is actually extremely similar. Whenever you learn a new word, you want to spend time thinking about different ways you could use that word, come up with as many scenarios as possible. This does several extremely important things. First of all, it creates multiple memories and use cases that your brain loves to cling on to. Your brain does not want to hold on to useless information. It only wants to remember what it knows is going to be useful. So when you're thinking ahead of time how you're going to use that word or grammar rule, your brain sticks to it a lot more easily. Number 2, when you do this, you will naturally begin referencing Spanish words against each other. So you might use a specific word in a specific grammatical context. And then every time you remember one of them, you are also training the connection to the other. Now, this might not seem like much when you're in your first 50 or 100 words, but once you're at about 500 words, you'll start to see the value of having those interconnected networks between the words that help you train more than one word at a time. And lastly, this mimics how you learned language as a baby. You didn't just learn a single word by reading a dictionary one time and then you knew it forever. Instead, you learned it in layers through multiple different situations and multiple different exposures. Over time, you built up a sense of ways that the word could be used and what it could mean in different scenarios. And then the multiple contexts in which you learned that word also connected to other words and other memories in your brain. So now you've actually started to network different words to each other, which is how you eventually build up into sentences, memories, concepts, ideas, everything more than just a single word at a time. This is also why people who focus purely on translation get stuck and can never advance to that next level where they're able to think and fluidly speak in a foreign language. You want each word in your language network to be like a single door that opens up multiple other pathways. And that doesn't happen if you're just translating each word in your head one by one. This was part 1 of a 5-part video series, Polyglot Secrets. You can check out the other 4 videos at my channel. We already covered polyglot secret number 1 in the last video. Check that out if you want. Polyglot secret number 2 is that they tap into long-term memory. Most people learn languages by trying to cram for their tests in school. They use their short-term memory to try to hold on to as much as they can remember in a short amount of time, but once the test is over, they forget it all. This creates what I like to call the hole in the bucket syndrome, where no matter how many words they study in their target language, it never really sticks because it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You're never going to fill it up. So instead, you want to take the time to actually put those words into your long-term memory. You can do this with a spaced repetition system like Anki, and there are several others as well. Anki is designed to re-show you specific information right before you forget it, and the act of forcing you to remember information that you are about to forget helps to drive it deeper into your long-term memory. When a polyglot wants to learn a new language, they are in it to win it. They know that they're going to put as much energy and time as required to get to their goal. So they don't have any qualms about putting in the extra work up front to make sure that they remember everything they learned. Experienced polyglots skip this problem entirely by doing the work up front to make sure that what they learn is there for them later. Trust me, you don't want to get to the end of the language learning process and then not be able to remember what you learned at the beginning. This was video 2 of a 5-part video series, Polyglot Secrets. You can check out the other 4 videos on my channel. I've already covered the first 2 polyglot secrets in previous videos. Feel free to go check those out. And polyglot secret number 3, they learn common sentence structures rather than memorizing grammar rules. A grammar rule might be something like every single time you want to conjugate in the first person present tense, you take away the ending of the verb and then add an O. So the verb hablar becomes hablo. But a sentence structure is something like yo quiero. This sentence structure is very simple, I want, and it can be followed by practically any noun or any verb, and it's useful in multiple situations. When polyglots want to learn a language as fast as humanly possible, they don't waste time memorizing entire textbooks full of rules that they probably won't use. Instead, they focus on the common, repeated grammatical structures that pop up over and over again. This gives them a framework for certain types of sentences that they can regularly create, and then they can just plug and play different nouns and different verbs into those structures. There's some great resources on YouTube covering the different sentence structures for various different languages. If you haven't heard of this trick, I would highly recommend you go check that out if you want to begin speaking in your target language as quickly as possible. This was Polyglot Secret number 3 out of a 5-part series. You can check out the other 4 videos on my channel. Polyglot Secret number 4 out of a 5-part series. You don't learn a language, your habits do. So you need to make exposure to your target language as automatic as possible. Now, the easiest way to do this is to simply move to a country where they speak that language. After all, there really is something to total immersion. But most of us can't really afford to do that. We don't have the time and we don't have the money. So what can we do instead? Well, we can make sure that we are exposed to our target language in as many different scenarios and as often throughout the day as possible. Even little things like putting your computer's operating system in the target language can make a big difference over time. I would also recommend listening to more music from your target language, watching TV shows from your target language, and other stuff like that. If you can get hooked on a great TV show or fall in love with a new genre of music from your target language, well, then the immersion and the exposure is taken care of for you. Most people understand the importance of putting focused time and effort into learning their target language, but there's a lot to be said for that background absorption and immersion that can happen when you surround yourself passively with that language. It will teach your brain that the language you are learning is important because you're constantly being exposed to it. And if nothing less, it will remind you to study a little bit more often. This was video number 4 out of the 5-part series, Polyglot Secrets. You can check out the rest on my channel. Polyglot Secret number 5 out of the 5-part series. Take the time to master the sounds of your target language. Every language is made up of different movements within the tongue, lips, and throat. And when you combine those movements in the right way, you speak fluently. But when you take the muscular movements that you're already used to creating because of your mother tongue and then try to apply those to a foreign language, well, that's why you have a terrible accent. A lot of people think that the accent is something that just happens at the end of the language learning process after you've mastered everything else. But the truth is, it's actually one of the foundational requirements to reaching fluency. And there are a lot of hidden benefits to mastering the accent before you focus on vocabulary. For instance, you'll actually learn to process the sounds that you're hearing. And then your learning can benefit from exposure to spoken language rather than just written. This opens up an entirely new world of learning possibilities that just does not exist from textbooks or subtitles. You also start practicing the muscle memory of your target language as soon as possible. And building up that muscle memory is crucial to actually be able to keep up with the rhythm of a native conversation. So the sooner you get started on that, the better. Lastly, this is also how babies learn their mother tongue. They spend 9 months to a year making weird baby sounds and just trying to coordinate their vocal muscles to be able to create the sounds they hear their parents speaking. And that's before they even know that those sounds have any meaning. This also helps you take advantage of background exposure to your target language much more deeply. Because if you're surrounded with the sounds of your target language, but you can't actually decipher them, well, then you don't really learn a lot. Instead, if you combine muscle memory with that background exposure, well, then it really starts to click, and a lot of learning can then happen in the background, just like it does for babies. Okay, that was Polyglot Secret number 5 out of the 5-part series. Check out my channel for the other 4. Polyglot Secret number 6, the bonus one. Take more risks. Language learning is based entirely on memory. If you try to teach a language to somebody with amnesia, they're not going to learn a thing. So the better your memory is, the faster you can learn and use a new language. Pretty simple, right? Well, here's the problem. Most people learn a language in the most boring, unmemorable way possible. You're not going to remember the 500th time you sat down at your desk in college. You're not going to remember the 1000th time you opened up Duolingo on your phone. These events are routine and therefore boring, and therefore they don't stick in your memory. Things that you learn while doing something boring are not that memorable. On the other hand, if you're taking risks, trying to start conversations, traveling the world, or even just doing new things with the language skills you're trying to learn, well, then those memories stick out a lot more, and you actually remember the language as you're learning it. In essence, the more adventure you can inject into the language learning process, the better it will go for you. You'll stay more motivated, you'll have more fun, you'll get more experiences, and you'll learn the language much faster and much more deeply. Not to mention, adventure is the whole point of learning a language anyway, right? So just get started. You don't need to wait to be fluent to start to have your adventure. Just get started now and you'll get fluent faster. This does involve making a lot more mistakes and potentially embarrassing yourself. But that risk is part of adventure, and it's what makes the whole thing memorable. So if you're prepared to take a few more risks and embarrass yourself a little bit during the language learning process, that will pay massive dividends down the line towards your ultimate goal of fluency.